Redeemer, we're going to continue in our time together, and I'm just so glad you could join us. I'm Daniel, by the way, if we haven't gotten to meet. I serve as the executive pastor, and if you're here as our guest, we just consider you that, our guest this morning. And members, we're glad you're here too. All right, we never get to call you out. All right, we're glad you're here as well. Don't forget that we have a members meeting actually next Sunday. It'll be at 4 o'clock, and honestly, this is a really exciting time in the life of Redeemer with this meeting, and is a really critical meeting for you as a member to be able to come to. At this meeting, we'll be able to affirm Rich Cheney as an elder of our church. And so as we're in this process that we've been through the past 3 weeks or so of just really kind of exploring, getting to know the Cheneys more, continue to do that and ask questions to our pastors. And we are expecting you to be able to join us next Sunday, again at 4 o'clock right here. It'll be a pretty short meeting. We'll have childcare and some light snacks there, but that's 4. And you can look at Dayton's kind of reminder email that he sent on Thursday if you need any details about that important and critical day. It honestly will be an exciting weekend together. And speaking of exciting weekends, if I can, tell you about a little bit going on in my life, this weekend has been pretty exciting for my family. My son is about to turn 1 here in 2 days, and so we had a bunch of family come into town, and we did the whole, birthday party thing yesterday. And we did like what I think, is the worst and the best idea in our culture, which is you give a 1-year-old who's never had sugar more sugar than any human being should consume at one point, right? Like you give them their whole own cake, which you don't do that for any adult, right? And so James, my son, he just started picking at stuff, and then he starts realizing, oh, no one's stopping me. And like I can put as much icing into my mouth as I want, and they're not going to care. And so, we'll see what that means over the next couple of days as he stops bouncing around. But it was just great. Like it's a wonderful celebration, having family and the whole nine. But at the same time, this weekend is honestly, it's kind of an anniversary of sorts too for us. That in fact, yesterday was 1 year ago that Kristen my wife, she went to an appointment, and a little something was off, but it was just kind of a typical routine appointment, and we figured everything was fine with the pregnancy. And then, hey, you need to go to the hospital. And then, oh, hey, you're going to have this baby at some point here this weekend, just right out of nowhere. That James was born then 7 weeks early. We had no idea that was going to happen, and then stayed in the hospital for 7 weeks. And thank the Lord, like he's doing great, genuinely. But like that just smacked us in the head like with a 2x4, like out of nowhere. We just had no clue that all of this brokenness of the world was just going to hit the fan that day, and that we would experience it. And the reality is, like, that happens all the time. Like maybe it's not with prematurity in a family member or something. Maybe it is, but maybe it's that loved one just dies. And you're just like, why did this happen? Or that you get that phone call that you've just been dreading, and you have cancer, or that person is sick, or perhaps that the rug just gets pulled out from under you, and now you lost your job. Your career is changing, or maybe it's not just even suffering related, but it's more just actual sin that you have a family member who's like, they just said things that you just can't believe that they just sinned against you. Like all of us have experienced and are experiencing the brokenness of the world, that things just aren't the way they're supposed to be, that things are just wrong. And the bleak reality that we will be reminded of in 1 Samuel is that we are part of the problem, and there's nothing we can do about it because of that. Because this brokenness is also in us, and that we in ourselves are broken. But at the same time, 1 Samuel will remind us of a hopeful truth too. It's our big idea that the true king will right every wrong. That yes, we can't right those wrongs. We can't fix the brokenness of the world, but a better one can. Jesus can. And that's going to be wonderful hope that we'll see in 1 Samuel 21. So let's pray together, and we'll dive in to this wonderful text. Father, I thank you this morning that we can open your word. I pray that we, broken people, that I, a broken man, that you would help us to have eyes to see and ears to hear your gospel clearly. Father, empower me with your Spirit to preach powerfully, that your Spirit would move, would save sinners, would encourage the saints, remind the saints of this simple truth, this truth that we talk about a lot at Redeemer, but that we really need to hear today. I pray for Billy Glossum at Coram Deo Church in Morganton. Father, that Acts 29 planter that we support, Father, I thank you for Billy. I pray that you would empower him, encourage him this morning, and help him to encourage the saints as they're wrapping up the book of Esther today. Help them to see the gospel and to see really a pretty similar truth, that your gospel does change everything and that there can be hope. I pray that you would save sinners there and that you would do the same this morning here. In Jesus' name, amen. So this morning, we're going to actually go through 1 Samuel 21, 22, 23, and 24. Dayton was really kind to me. And so we're going to go through a lot of chapters. Someone earlier was like, I'm really interested to see how you handle this. Me too. We'll see what happens here. But we're going to start in 1 Samuel 21 here in just a second. But to kind of catch you up to speed in case you haven't been with us. In 18 and 19 was what we saw last week. David is starting to get more successful. Right? He had the whole David and Goliath thing. We know about that, and that was a wonderful victory. But then now even more so, more victories are coming, and people are seeing it. People are noticing it, even songs being sung about him. And Saul is noticing it too. Saul is now getting jealous. He's getting bitter. He's now even getting enraged. He wants to now even kill David because of this. I mean, he's so threatened. He wants to kill this man. And so a theme that picks up in the book of 1 Samuel is that anytime Saul picks up a spear, you know he's angry. You know that something's about to happen, that brokenness is coming out of this man. And so he actually tries to kill David multiple times last week, right? On a side note, David's apparently the guy you want on your dodgeball team because Saul tries to throw a spear at this man and he dodges out of the way every single time. But he doesn't die. But every single time, Saul he's trying to actually kill this man. Now, in chapter 20, David is on the run, and Jonathan, who's kind of like an adopted father of sorts, he's this best friend, that was very southern, friend. Did you hear that? But he's a best friend of David. And so what happens is they do this kind of test to see is Saul just having a bad day, or does he really want to kill this man? After this test, they realize, no, Saul wants him dead. Like he really wants to kill this man. And so David's on the run. I mean, he's a fugitive. He's not done anything wrong, but he is on the run. And so he needs to disappear. Like he needs to go into the shadows so Saul can't find him. And so that's what we pick up here. He goes to a city called Nob. Nob is a sanctuary city with priests, so he can't be seen, hopefully. Check it out, chapter 21, verse 1. David went to the priest Ahimelech at Nob. Ahimelech was afraid to meet David. So he said to him, why are you alone? No one's with you. You see, David's a big deal, right? I mean, he's this warrior that many people now are learning. He's going to be king. And so Ahimelech is saying, why is no one with you? You should have an entourage with you. You should have even guards with you. So what does David say? David answered him, the king gave me a mission. But he told me, don't let anyone know anything about the mission I'm sending you on or what I've ordered you to do. I have stationed my young men at a certain place. He says, they're not here. They're over there. They can't even hear what I'm talking about. Now, what did David just do? I mean, like he just straight up lied to this priest. He is deceiving him. Ultimately, we learn because in verse 3, he says, now what do you have on hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread or whatever can be found. He needs bread. He also needs a sword. He'll get that in a moment. But he just lies to this priest. So don't move past that too quickly. Like David is a sinner, just like you and me. Like he is part of this brokenness of this sinful world, just like you and me. And we'll see that come up even more. But this priest does give him bread. But then jump to verse 7. Something happens. Remember, David is trying to be in the shadows. He's trying not to be seen. He's on the run. He's a fugitive. And so verse 7, but one of Saul's servants detained before the Lord was there that day. His name was Doeg, the Edomite. He's chief of Saul's shepherds. Now, whenever you see an Edomite or you see Edom come up, your ears should perk up. When the first readers and the first hearers would have seen this, they would have known, oh, okay, something bad's about to happen. This is not going to end up well for them. It's kind of like scary music starts playing in the background. And I mean, to be honest, in English we pick it up too, right? It says one of Saul's servants is there. He's in the corner. Not to mention this guy has a horrible name, Doeg. I mean, this guy can't be a good guy, right? I mean, this Edomite is going to bring about destruction. You'll see why later. Just remember him in the back of your mind. But before we do that, remember what has happened. David has now gotten bread from this priest, and now then he asks the priest, hey, I need a sword as well. Do you have something? The priest actually has there in that city the sword that Goliath used. So then now David has this sword. So he's gotten bread, he's got a sword, and now he's back on the run. David leaves, he goes to a town called Gath, and now in chapter 22, pick up with me there, chapter 2, verse 1, David's going to leave Gath. Verse 1, so David left Gath and took refuge in the cave of Adullam. When David's brothers and his father's whole family heard, they went down and joined him there. So what has happened is David is on the run. I mean, really, Saul and David are going to, throughout these chapters, they're playing this classic like cat and mouse game of just searching after each other, really. David's trying to get away and Saul almost gets there. And so what happens is somehow David's family hears that David is there. And so they come to him. Now, why did they come to him? It's because they're on the run too. It's because they need to hide in these caves as well. In fact, keep reading. You'll see just how much in danger they are. Verse 2, it says, in addition, every man who was desperate, in debt, or discontented rallied around him, David, and he became their leader. About 400 men were with him. We'll come back to that in just a second. Keep going. From there, David went to Mizpah of Moab, where he said to the king of Moab, please let my father and mother stay with you until I know what God will do for me. So he left him in the care of the king of Moab, and they stayed with him the whole time David was in the stronghold. So it's not just that this is a quick family reunion of, oh, we haven't seen you in a while. Let's come over. No, they are in danger. They have to get away. David has to protect them. He has to send them to a faraway place to be protected by this king of Moab. And so what we're realizing is a subtle but true reality that when brokenness enters into our world of suffering, of sin, it doesn't just impact you. No, that brokenness actually spreads to our families. It actually spreads to our friends. It actually spreads to those around us, our coworkers, and those that we know and that we're close to. Brokenness really, it quite literally has spread to the world. And any time that we experience this brokenness, it's really a communal event. And so his family is now on the run too. Saul wants them dead too. Because he is not just content with killing David. No, we'll see in just a second how much Saul wants David dead. But notice back where we skipped in verse 2. Yes, David's family is coming after Saul, and they're actually coming for really refuge too, but people start following David. Check it out in verse 2 again. It says, in addition, every man who was desperate, in debt, or discontented rallied around David, and he became their leader. It was about 400 men who were with him. Later, it actually even grows to 600 men. And this is basically an army. Like they say, hey, David, you are our leader. You're the one that we want to follow. We need you because this isn't some just amazing group. These aren't just the mightiest warriors, right? This isn't the Sparta's 300 or here in this example, 400. No, these are losers. Like they're people who have no hope. They're people who need someone. They're people just like David who are on the run. And they say, we want to follow you. We want to follow you because you'll be king. And here, the writer of the text is pointing us to a true reality that we can't miss. My wife actually helped me see this week, that earlier, that aren't these the same type of people that follow Jesus? Like, it's not the popular people. It's not the people that have everything together. It's not the people that are well known necessarily. Like, it's the hurting. It's the destitute. It's the broken. And they follow Christ. Or it's like in the Jesus Storybook Bible, as I was reading to James earlier this week. Who is it that follows the true King? Who is it that follows Jesus? It's the people that realize they need him. It's the people that realize they really need Jesus. And so as we keep in mind our big idea that Jesus, the true King, is the one who will right every wrong, you have to ask, who am I following? Who am I searching after? Who am I running to for my rescue? Is it Jesus? Or is it someone else? But these people, they're following David. They run to David for their salvation in this sense here. They're not running to Saul, are they? Because Saul, man, he's a broken dude. Check it out. You'll see it here in verse 7. Saul said to his servants, "Listen, men of Benjamin, is Jesse's son," he's talking about David here, "is Jesse's son going to give you all the fields and vineyards? Do you think he'll make all of you commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds? That's why all of you have conspired against me." He says, do you think he's just going to give you whatever you want? Is that why he's starting to go crazy? He's saying, everyone's against me. Everyone doesn't want me. They want David as king. Nobody tells me when my own son makes a covenant with Jesse's son. No one cares about me or tells me my son is stirred up or even or of my own servant to wait in ambush for me, as is the case today. He says, you guys aren't even following me. You're following David now. Saul, he's just going crazy. He's power hungry, and he's just grasping for anything he can. He's saying, you guys don't care about me. But there's one guy that does. It's that Edomite. It's Doeg that we saw earlier. You'll see it, verse 9. Then Doeg the Edomite, who was in charge of Saul's servants, answered. Remember, he was off in the corner when we saw him earlier in chapter 21. I saw Jesse's son come to Ahimelech, son of Ahitub, at Nob. Ahimelech inquired of the Lord for him and gave him provisions. He also gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine. So you can imagine what Saul does. He says, oh, you just saw him? You saw him recently? Well, we need to get Ahimelech here. We need him here right now. So he gets him brought there, and he questions him. He says, is this what happened? Did you see him? Did you help him? Did you inquire of the Lord for him? And he says, yes. And what's Saul's response? You can probably guess. Verse 16. But the king said, you will die, Ahimelech, you and your father's whole family. I'm not content with just punishing you for this sin that you've not committed. I want you and your whole family dead. But here's the deal. No one will do it. All of Saul's people, they say, no, this is sin. This is absolutely wrong. We're not going to do this. We're not going to kill God's people. We're not going to kill God's priests here because of what they did. But Doeg will. The Edomite says, so the king said to Doeg in verse 18, go and execute the priests. So Doeg the Edomite went and he executed the priest himself. On that day, he killed 85 men who wore linen ephods. That's just priestly garments. He killed 85 priests. He also struck down Nob, the city of the priests. Not just the priest, not just his family, all of the priests, all of the city with the sword. And notice this list. You've seen this before. Both men and women, infants and nursing babies, oxen, donkeys, and sheep. Where have you seen a list like this before? It was earlier in the book, right? Of who Saul was supposed to wipe out with the Philistines. And now Saul is taking this page and he is applying it to God's own people. He has wiped out this entire city because of what he thinks has been done to him. I mean, this is just total wickedness, right? I mean, can you believe this? Can you believe how horrible this is, how sinful this is, that Saul would do this, that he would wipe out all these people? But before we get too much on a high horse, before we just, I can't believe he would do that too much, aren't we the same as Saul? I mean, without the restraining grace of Jesus, isn't this what you would do? Isn't this what I would do? I mean, that's why Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount, he says, I mean, if you have anger against your brother in your heart, you've murdered him. And so, have you ever been angry with someone? Yes, that's the answer. Me too. You've murdered them. You ever been angry at a family of, I can't believe that they did that they're viewing me in this way? Then you've murdered them. Ever been angry at a people, maybe a city, or then you've murdered them. We're no different, and we're no better than Saul. The brokenness that Saul is bringing to the world is the brokenness that you and I have. It's the brokenness that we bring into the world, and that we can't do anything about. You see, Saul here, he's trying to take this matter into his own hands. He thinks that this great thing has been done against him, that Ahimelech would just dare to defy him, the king. And so he's trying to right this wrong. But he brings brokenness into the situation, and he just brings more brokenness, which is what we do. When we try to take situations in our own hand, when we try to right the wrongs, and we try to make right what is just wrong in the world, we only bring brokenness and sin. And so we have to then ask, well, then who do we run to in the midst of our brokenness? There's a little bit of a hint in what comes next. You see, Doeg in 18 and 19, it says he killed everyone for Saul. And then in verse 20, we learn, though, that one person got away somehow. It says, verse 20, however, one of the sons of Ahimelech, son of Ahitub, escaped. His name was Abiathar. They really love A names for boys. Just want to point that out. And he fled to David. So this guy, Abiathar, this priest who got away, he told David that Saul had killed the priests of the Lord. Then David said to Abiathar, I know that Doeg, the Edomite, was there. I saw him in the corner, and I knew he was going to report to Saul. I myself am responsible for the lives of everyone in your father's family. Do you see what David's doing here? I mean, he didn't murder these people. He was not Doeg. He was not Saul's orders. Now, David, yes, he deceived this priest, yes. But he's taking the responsibility on his shoulders for the sin that he did not commit. David here is foreshadowing Jesus, who will do this for us. That he will take sin on himself, even though he was sinless. And he will die for us. But notice that in this, who is Abiathar going to? He is going to David, right? It says, verse 23, David says, so stay with me. Don't be afraid. For the one who wants to take my life wants to take your life. You'll be safe with me. Abiathar was a priest of Nob. And what we learned is literally everyone was killed. Everything was destroyed. And so Abiathar might have been one of those that had those infants or nursing infants, right? He might have had a family, had a wife, had livestock, had a life that he had built. And all of it's gone. I mean, this man has nothing. It's real like Job's situation here for this man. He has absolutely nothing. Everything has been annihilated. And Abiathar points us to what we, in the midst of our suffering, in the midst of sin and the wrong that has been done to us, what we must do. He runs to the king. He runs to the king who promises, don't be afraid. You'll be safe with me. Because that's where hope can be found. That's where peace and safety and security can be found. And so it begs the question then, when you do have suffering, when you are sinned against, who and what do you run to? Do you run to the king? Or do you run to money and things to fill you? Do you run to the king? Or do you run to pleasure, sex, comfort, excess, food, drink. Do you run to the king? Or do you run to power? Whether that's power in a job, whether that's power or success in those around you and how others view you, whether that's even just power in the sense of social media and being known and having likes and being followed. Who do you run to? Because it exposes in our hearts who and what really is the king. And who you're running to is where you'll find your comfort, your peace, your safety. You see, Abiathar, he runs to David. He doesn't run to Saul. And David, he's going to show, at least in this moment, is very contrary to Saul. You see, Saul just annihilated God's people and not, right? And then in chapter 23, which we're just going to summarize for time, in chapter 23, David and his men, they go to Keilah. It's a city nearby. It's in Judea. And there in Keilah, they're being attacked by the Philistines. So God's people are being attacked, and what does David and his men do as he's on the run? He goes and he rescues these people. And they fight off and they win. They rescue these people. David is totally the opposite of Saul in this way. Saul has killed God's people. David has rescued them. But then from there, this game of cat and mouse just comes right back into play. They just start chasing after each other. And so David, he's in Keilah, and Saul, he finds out that he's there. And so he starts coming. So then David leaves. David goes somewhere else and Saul goes after him there. David goes over here and then Saul comes after him. And then God moves him away to this Philistine army to be able to fight there. All of this chasing and going around. And then it finally is going to lead to the moment that you know about. You've heard the story in chapter 24 before, where David and Saul are going to be confronted with each other. It's this kind of awkward, funny scene, to be honest, in a cave. But there, David is going to be struck with something that you and I are struck with every single day, which is when wrong or suffering is done to us, or we experience the brokenness of the world, or we're tempted, of how will we respond? Will we take matters into our own hands? Will we try to be God, the only one who can take vengeance and who really has the right to judge and take that vengeance? Or will we act on our own accord? And in fact, that's what we're going to look at for the rest of our time here. Turn with me to chapter 24, verse 1. So when Saul returned from pursuing the Philistines, he was told, hey, David's in the wilderness near En-Gedi. Go over there, you'll find him. So verse 2, Saul took 3,000 of Israel's fit young men. And this is against David's 600 just ragtag bunch, right? Like there's no chance here. David is going to get annihilated by these people. So Saul has these 3,000, and he went to look for David and his men in front of the rocks of the wild goats. You got to love the Bible, right? I mean, they describe things just like we do. I mean, it's like, hey, where do you live? You know, there's the rock. It looks like a face, and then right around the tree, like that's apparently there's wild goats there. And then you got to love the next verse too. You understand that this is true. Like this is communicated by people. Verse 3. So they're there. They're in the En-Gedi. They're going to the rocks of the wild goats. When Saul came to the sheep pen along the road, the cave was there. And he went to relieve himself. And that means exactly what you think it means. All right? He's got to go to the bathroom. All right? He's taking a rest stop. And so Saul is now going in there by himself. And what happens is that someone's in there. Like David and his men were staying in the recesses of the cave. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Like David is in there with his men, and they're let's imagine that it's at night. We don't know exactly the time and things. It probably is though. And so he's there and they hear someone walk in. It's probably a relatively normal thing that could happen, that someone's just going to stop and go to the restroom there. And then they hear oh, someone's just there. But wait a second. Like, who is that? David, that's Saul. That's Saul right there. Go kill him. Like, take advantage of this situation. I mean, that's exactly what the men say. They say, go kill this man. They say, verse 4, they said to him, look, this is the day the Lord told you about. I will hand your enemy over to you so you can do whatever you desire. David, you desire to kill him. Kill him. Get rid of this man. We're on the run because of this dude. Kill him. We know that this is David's temptation because of what we see later in the text. That his conscience, it really burdens him over exactly how he was weighing through this. But in this situation, David is cornered, and he has a decision to make. Am I going to try to right the wrongs myself, or am I going to allow Jesus to right the wrongs ultimately? Now, you know what happens. In fact, it should be still on the screen in verse 4. So David got up, and he secretly cut off the corner of Saul's robe. He doesn't come and cut Saul, but no, instead the corner of his robe. And so David, he comes, I don't know exactly how this happens, just use your imagination. He comes, he crawls up behind him, and without him knowing, without him hearing, he cuts part of the robe and gets away. And so why does David do this? Why doesn't he kill this man? He had every opportunity. Saul would not have known what hit him. Why? We'll keep looking. Jump to verse 8. So Saul leaves, and now David, after that, verse 8, got up and went out of the cave. He calls to Saul, "My lord, the king." So Saul looked behind him. David knelt low with his face to the ground and paid homage. David said to Saul, "Why do you listen to the words of people who say, 'Look, David intends to harm you'? He says, 'You can see with your own eyes that the Lord handed you over to me today in the cave.' He says, 'Man, you were just in there. I'm standing right here at the front of it. Someone advised me. My guys told me to kill you, but I took pity on you. I said, I won't lift my hand against my Lord, against the king, since he is the Lord's anointed. Look, my father." Here he's just out of respect. "King, look. Look at the corner of the robe. Look at your robe. It's in my hand. I cut it off, but I didn't kill you. I cut your robe. I didn't cut you. Recognize I've committed no crime or rebellion. I haven't sinned against you, even though you're hunting me down to take my life." And then look at this verse in verse 12. "May the Lord judge between me and you, and may the Lord take vengeance on you for me. But my hand will never be against you." David has just shown him great mercy. And he tells Saul, "I want you to see I could have killed you, but I'm trusting in the Lord, who I'm asking him to show judgment and vengeance on you, rather than me showing vengeance and justice on you." I'll be honest, when I read verses like verse 12, you see it in Romans 12, it comes up again because vengeance is mine, God says. When you see passages like we had in our corporate reading in the book of Psalms where we hear these things about God going against our enemies, you only really get that when you actually have enemies against you, when you feel like the world is attacking you. Because if not, it's easy to have this just flat level of Christianity where you look at things of, you know what, we just need to show grace, we need to show love. You know what, God is okay with the wrongs. He'll ultimately just forgive those. And while it's true that our God is a forgiving, gracious, loving God, our God is also full of justice and righteousness. He is a God who will right every wrong, who will not stand for the injustices of the world, the injustices in your life and the injustices all around us. Our God is not okay with that, and you know it because he went to the cross for it. If he was okay with it, he just would have glossed over it, just would have forgiven everyone. But no, Jesus takes all of that on himself in the cross. And so here we're learning that biblical Christianity is trusting in a God who will bring vengeance, who will right those wrongs. And for some of you this morning, that is very good news, because you see the injustice that's been done to you and to those around you, and you know there's nothing you can do about it. Take hope that our God does know, and he does see, and he will right it. He will right that wrong. But notice what David doesn't do. He doesn't take this vengeance on him No, he allows God to do that. He trusts in the Lord to do that. Because ultimately, what did Jesus do? You'll see a glimpse of it in verse 16. This is Saul's response now. It says, when David finished saying these things to him, Saul replied, "Is that your voice, David, my son?" And Saul wept aloud and said to David, "You're more righteous than I." No duh. "For you have done what is good to me, though I've done what is evil to you. You yourself have told me today what good you did for me. When the Lord handed me over to you, you didn't kill me. When a man finds his enemy, does he let him go unharmed? Of course not. May the Lord repay you, David, with good for what you've done for me today. Now I know for certain you'll be king, and the kingdom of Israel will be established in your hand." Here Saul is, on some level, genuinely humbled by what David just did to him, by this mercy that he's shown him. But you'll see next week, this obviously did not change his heart. Because literally, almost the exact same situation will happen again. He will start chasing him. He will be on the run, and they'll run into each other again, and he'll give this same speech. Saul doesn't change. But here, he does point us to some amazing realities about David. Here he says that you're being righteous. You're showing this great mercy, and you will be king, and your kingdom will be established. And while these things are so true in the text, they're so true that that David was righteous in this moment. He's not ultimately righteous. Yeah, he got it right in that moment. He was trusting in Jesus, who will be one day righting those wrongs. But David, as we saw at the beginning of this, in chapter 21, he is a sinner. He is not a righteous man. And what we'll see here in just a few weeks, who does David become? With Bathsheba, he will be this adulterous, lying, deceitful man who murders others. David just becomes Saul. And so in this, David, yes, who has this righteous act, he is just like Saul, and he is just like you and me. And so because of that, he is not the true king that we need. He is not the true king that Saul is ultimately, though he has no clue who Saul is ultimately pointing us to. No, that is Jesus, the one who is always righteous, the one who always is faithful, and who lived the perfect sinless life that we don't. And in that, he is the one who shows mercy. What does Saul say? He says that the Lord handed me over to you and you didn't kill me. When a man finds his enemy, does he let him go unharmed? You see, David is pointing us to Jesus ultimately because, yes, David showed mercy here, but he is just showing mercy in a basic way. He isn't dying for Saul. He isn't paying for Saul's penalty. But Jesus at the cross, he doesn't just show mercy by forgiving. No, Jesus takes our sin on himself, and he dies for us, his enemy. And in that, in his death, in his burial, and in his resurrection, we know that his payment was good and accepted because he did walk out of the grave. And so those who repent and believe the gospel, those who turn from their sin and trust in that Jesus, who look to the King, who run to the King, they have salvation, they have life, and they have hope. They have hope that Jesus one day really will right every wrong. They have hope because Jesus is the King. He is the true King who will right those wrongs. He is the true King whose kingdom will be established. He's the King whose kingdom was established when he came. And in his victory at the cross, we can see that his kingdom is now coming to fruition. And that one day we will see it in all of its glory and all of its reality when Jesus returns, where he will right every wrong. That's where we can have hope. It's not in David. It's not in David who is a failure, who will bring sin, but it's in Jesus. But it does beg a question. As great, as glorious as that hope is, of what do we do when we do experience the brokenness of the world around us? What do we do when we do have others sin against us, wrong against us? And I think there's really two things that we can see from this passage. One is that we have to preach the gospel to ourselves, that Jesus will right every wrong. We have to remind ourselves, and we have to remind each other regularly of, I hear you. I know that you are in pain. Jesus knows. That's why he came, and one day he will right this wrong. I know that person sinned against you. Jesus knows, and he will right that wrong. But then, there's a second thing. That as we are wronged against, as those sin against us, as others hurt us, we can show mercy as Christ has shown us mercy. We do see it. Here in this moment, David does get it right. Out of what Christ ultimately will do for him, as he is hoping for Christ to come, he experiences this mercy and shows mercy out of that. And friends, this is what we must do as well. Because of the Spirit, we can and get the honor to be able to show mercy to those who have wronged us. And this is an incredibly hard thing to do. I mean, this is not an easy thing to do. But out of the Spirit, in community, we can do this. The Spirit will empower you to be able to show mercy. And the reality is, you'll mess up. You will sin. Sometimes, like David, you'll show mercy. You'll picture the gospel. And sometimes, you'll picture Saul to them. You won't pursue mercy. And in that, that's where we have to return to the reality that Jesus will right that wrong too. His grace is sufficient for you. His mercy was for you even when you won't show mercy. But in Christ's kindness, he gives us his Spirit so we can show mercy. Let's pray.